Yeah, I mean, let's just look at his stats. Sloth, you can go through this a bit more as well, because he's a very different player. Well, not very different, but he is different to Scamacca in terms of the way he plays. So I guess looking at this report again, one from Mike on the Twitter page, what kind of differences are there between Broja and someone like Scamacca, and how they can slightly be compared in terms of what they would bring to how Moyes plays and how they play as an individual?
Well, I think probably the key thing is, and with Broja, he's a lot more. He will run at a player, and he's a lot more kind of direct. He's not quite running the channels, but he moves in that Antonio-esque way that we know he'll drop deep and he'll really run at players. And I mean, it's a funny one for me because I think while I think Broja has huge potential, I'm not someone who's 100% sold on him. Like, we're talking about someone who's got 8 league goals, and we're talking about a £30 million price tag. So for me, it's a bit of a he's a luxury price. He's a luxury price player. He's not a luxury player, but he's someone who we would need to spend. If we're going to buy him, it's going to be a statement, and it's one that I think at his age he's got a load of room to improve, but so has Scamacca. Whereas Scamacca's a bit more of a natural goal scorer. He's got that aerial ability that, to be honest, for a 6-foot+ player, I just haven't seen from Broja. I haven't seen this idea that he's going to be a great target man or really bulldoze through players. He did it to us, but he didn't really outmuscle anyone. He didn't really, apart from Dawson, I think, for that dodgy penalty. But that, for me, was more just kind of bad defending. But I don't know. I'm kind of apprehensive about the figures with Broja, because while I think part of me says if he's Moyes' number one target, go for him 100%. But personally, I would rather sign someone who is that bit more proven and we know is a team's number one striker. The stats there kind of show how how hard he works and how much he runs at defenders. But for me, that's all well and good, but you're only getting eight league goals. And I know he's been in and out of the Southampton side, but kind of that almost raises as many questions for me as it answers, because why is he in and out of the squad when their alternatives are, let's be honest, not the best? So
yeah. I think what I find interesting as well, so I don't know if you agree with that, if you look at Scamacca, obviously this season, 16 goals, I believe. Last season for Genoa, so again, not a big team in Syria, but again, still had 12 goals, 2 assists, so still 14 goal contributions. So in the past 2 seasons in Syria, he's been in double figures for goal contributions. So that's a good standard of league. He's been at one at Genoa, who I believe may have just scraped relegation fight. They're this season again, Sassuolo again, a mid-table team, brilliant attacking, terrible defending, but again, 16 goals. So he's scoring goals in arguably poorer or lesser sides in Italy. Now, again, I understand people want to go, well, Simone Zaza scored goals for in Italy, and then look what he was. But I think this is a different player to Zaza, and there's a bit of a derogatory view to Scamacca because he's from Syria. He's just broken into the Italian team and he's like 23, 24. Whereas Broja is kind of held as this pantheon of brilliant, pacey striker and so on. But to the point, he scored 8 goals. We have to also acknowledge he played in a 2-man of strike force. We play a lone centre forward. Scamacca plays a lone centre forward. So there's going to be a level of adaptation from Broja there's also, again, the trade-off that Broja's link play and his ability in possession isn't the same level as Antonio. It's quite a way off of Antonio. And it's also off of Scamacca. So we would be paying 30 million, but you're paying 30 million for a rough gem that could be polished into a diamond, but he is a rough gem. We have to be very honest about that.
Yeah.
And he has the pace to hurt teams, but we've got to use him. Now, I will give him a little bit of slack in terms of the drop-off at the end of last season, in the sense of, it was rumoured that we went in for him in January. It sounded like it was quite progressed until we decided to try and switch the deal to a loan. So that could explain as well part of the drop-off, in that he was expecting to be playing for us and maybe in Europe, and then that dream got kind of dashed, and so did, so some other things. And then let's face it, Southampton didn't have a necessarily great
I think they dropped off in the second half of the season massively.
Exactly. So, there are, I think, mitigating factors into how he dropped off last season. He's a raw player, could be fantastic, but I think ideally, if Moyes could have his own way, I think he would take both, because Antonio is 32, has 2 years left on his contract. That's, over that 2-year period, you've got two players that you can bring through, polish into the players that you want. Arguably, you would probably think that he's probably thinking, well, if I was to get Scamacca, that in the next 6 months, this is going to be my star man. And over the course of that last season, and again, this isn't derogatory to Antonio, because Antonio can very well still be our star man for the next 2 years. It's just, he's an impressive specimen of a man, and he is quality, apart from the occasional brain farts in front of goal. But it does give you the opportunity, if you manage to get both, which has been talked about, to have a very stable player in Antonio that you know and you trust, whilst you bring these guys in. I think with Allaire, that wasn't the thought process, mainly because it wasn't Moyes' player, and Moyes didn't want to adapt, and Allaire tried to, but again, there were other mitigating factors, such as our midfield being about 10, 15 yards away from at all times, which ultimately made it even harder for him. So I do think Broja, will be his number one target, because he's seen him in the Premier League. He has, well, let's face it, he absolutely embarrassed us on a couple of occasions, and he battered who was arguably our best defender last season in Dawson. And paces, as we've said a number of times, petrifies teams in the Premier League. But in the area, he can score. It's just he fell off a bit last year. Again, we have to acknowledge he's not going to be Antonio. He's not going to play like Antonio. So if we do sign him, we can't expect the same performances in terms of not necessarily the ball carrying, because his ball carrying is good, but that progressive passing, that playing other players in, creating for others. He's more of a get the ball, run with it, or get in behind the line and then score and be clinical. That's more his style. I think he could be a target man, but I'd say he's more of a Vardy than he ever is going to be an Antonio, if I was to pick a kind of some sort of comparison.
Well, let me put it this way as well. I think if Broja comes in, Broja is going to sit on the bench for times of the season. He's not going to be the main man. Whereas if Scamacca comes in, he's going to want to be the main man. He's going to want starts. He's going to want to be one of the first names on the team sheets. And Antonio's time will have to be kind of taken away from him as such. Like Moyes will be forced almost to play Scamacca, because there's no way he's just going to want to come in and sit around. It's I'm not saying Moyes will be forced to do things, but he's going to put pressure on him to try and do things, and he's going to want to play. Whereas Broja, again, let's face it, he's going to come in, he's going to be very much second choice, and he's going to have to fight his way into the team past Antonio. Now, my main kind of worry with that is that he comes on and misses a chance, and suddenly every single West Ham fan online, why have we spent all this money on this donkey? Blah, like, there's a reason Chelsea let him go. And like we can guarantee that's going to happen at any point in the season. Like if he misses a good chance, that's going to happen unless he's hit 10 goals by December.
Yeah.
And what does that do to a young man? With Scamacca, if he misses a chance like that and it's early on in his career, I genuinely think he won't give a toss, because he'll think, I'm going to get more chances like that. I'm going to do this. We haven't seen anything from Broja that would say, actually, he's got the metal. He's going to go forward. He's going to really. Everyone's saying at the moment he's got that dog in him. You know, he's got that dog. He's going to go forward. He's going to run at defenders, and he's going to make his own chance. Now, Broja is a battler. He's physical. He's quick, but you know, 8 goals is 8 goals.
Yeah, I think for me, with what we need this summer, I think we're not going to spend 80 to 85 million on 2 players that can arguably be brought in as one person when we've got Antonio. I think Moyes will, because you know Antonio's still got 2 years left, and you know last season he was very important for us. Let's not forget that, because yes, he went quiet, but again he had no competition. He was playing all of these games. He done very well to stay fit in that time. So I think for me, although Scamacca, however you say it, is probably the better option in terms of if you want a goal scorer, I think for us and what we need this summer, I think I'd actually prefer to go for someone like Broja, who there isn't that initial expectation of him starting. He's still 20. He's still got a lot of time to develop into, you know, a really good player. And I think it's the type of player Moyes likes to kind of develop himself and bring into a system he likes. And then you look at, you know, the other positions we need and the players we're targeting for those positions. You know, someone like Onana, who's going to cost, 35 million for that central midfield role. We also need a right winger, which we're going to get onto. We'll need an attacking midfielder. We'll need a left winger. We need a left back. There's still a lot of other work to do. So I can't see us getting both unless we somehow get Broja on loan.
Yeah.
But I don't think he'd want to do that. And another thing with Broja is, he wants to join. You know, he's already said that he wants to join. You know, staying in London, playing in the Premier League. So I think he would come with not necessarily a point to prove, but he would come with a lot of ambition to make his mark on the team. You know, being 20 years old, still a long way to go. You know, compare that to Rice, who we all still consider as a young player. It's 23. You know, it's a big difference. You know, you see Rice's progression from 20 years old to 23. Not comparing their ability, but you know, you kind of understand my point. So I think I would go with Broja just because it's cheaper. It's a position I don't think we need to immediately improve our starting 11 on. I think Antonio's good enough to lead the line next season as long as we have that other option.